I wanted to show off this piece of equipment I just made. This is for testing payphone relays for the telephone company style payphones. This is the GTE Automatic Electric 120B. There's the other one, the Centurion, and in there the Western Electric 1D2. It should also work on the Northern Electric 3-slot, the 233 over there as well. But this is designed to actually let you test and operate the relay inside the phone that holds the coins. Now, if you're wondering how that works, I have a really good video showing that Western Electric payphone opened up that explains how the coin mechanism works. But basically, when you deposit your money in there and the phone was on a real coin phone line, it would hold your money in the little cup inside that relay, and if the call went through, the relay would activate and dump the coins into the coin return. If it didn't go through, it would dump them back out, or if it went through, it would dump them into the coin box in the vault. If it didn't go through, it would dump it into the coin return. Had that backwards. So with a payphone wired up to a regular phone line, a regular landline or a VoIP line, it does not do that because it requires 100 volts DC pulsed into the phone to make that happen, to activate that relay. So any coins you put in there will get stuck in that relay and just sit there until you manually open the phone up and push the relay in, or you can wire tie it open so they always just fall right through. I wanted to make a device that would not only let you test the relay, but let you operate it. Now, this doesn't provide any actual control of the phone. It doesn't supervise if a call went through or anything like that. There are controllers that do that. They're rather pricey, but they're supposedly very well made. I just haven't paid 250 bucks for one. So I'm going to plug this in. This is using a 120 volt AC to 100 volt DC power supply. I am going to finish that off and put a plexiglass cover over that because that's live 120 right there, and you really don't want to get into that. We'll plug it in, and then you can see here it's got a phone jack, and we'll go ahead and deposit some money into this phone. Put a nickel in there, and you can hear it didn't. That one. Okay. Sometimes the nickels come back out that coin mechanism for it needs to be adjusted. But we will activate it to refund. And this is a momentary switch. Listen. That just pulsed 100 volts into the phone on tip and ground. Now, here's one schematic of how you could build this. This is using two DPST dual pole single throw switches, momentary, one for collect and one for return, wired like this, 100 volt DC in, tip and ground, which is your green and your yellow wire. And this is the device here. This is the one I went with. I went with the double pole double throw, and I bridged it in an X. And I don't know how well this will show up, but this makes it a reversing switch when you do this. So when the switch back, it would send current to these in reverse. Whereas with the switch forward, it would send it straight through. The momentary was in case I couldn't find a momentary DPST like this, or DPDT. So you don't need the momentary if this switch is momentary. If this switch isn't, you need a momentary because you don't want to leave the 100 volts just going into it. You want to pulse it real quick. Around 100 volts, this is actually adjustable. There's a screw. You could adjust the voltage, I think, up to like 118, and it goes down to 70. So inside there's just the switch going into this jack, the 100 volt DC, 120 volts AC on this side, 100 volt DC on this side, and ground. That's really all there is to it. This power supply I got off eBay. The blue part is what I bought off eBay. The gray box is a project box I had that I mounted to the power supply. Now, you do want to be careful because 100 volts DC will hurt. I haven't gotten into it yet, and I don't intend to. But it's got a very low amperage. Let's unplug this first before I prove what it feels like. It's 0.07 amps output. And especially going over the small gauge phone wire, there wouldn't be enough amps likely to kill you, but be safe with it. If you're going to mess with 100 volts DC, treat it the same way you would 100 volts AC. I mean, just be respectful of it and don't leave your connections open like I've done there. That will be covered up. This is just phase 1 right now, but this is it. You could build one of these. I got the 100-volt power supply off of eBay. There was some more on there that were a little more pricey. This one was actually in the same state I'm in, so I got it within like a day. You do need DC though. I wouldn't recommend putting a rectifier on straight on a 100-volt line and doing it that way, because if something failed, you'd dump 120 volts AC into your phone and probably fry it. It's also a lot more dangerous that way. Get something that's actually a regulated power supply to do that with, or put 2 transformers back to back. Like if you have a 16-volt AC transformer, you could wire the 16-volt output into the 16-volt output of another transformer and then have it 120 coming out the... If you don't understand what I'm talking about, don't try to do it. But basically, hook 2 transformers back to back and have 120 volts AC going in one, 120 volts AC going back out the other to be isolated. But that's basically it. There's really not much inside it. I just put it all back together. One thing that you do have to take into account though, the way these phone cords work is they're actually like a crossover cable. So this is actually wired to red and black. It's unplugged, okay. It's wired to red and black. It should technically be wired to tip and ground, green and yellow. But when you do that, it puts it on red and black on the distant jack. And I've used, if you look here, you notice how on one end the yellow is on the right side there, and then on the other the yellow is on the left side. That's like a crossover cable, and most of them are like that. There's some that are straight through, but you want one that has 4 conductors. So you definitely want the 4 conductor. And with the GTE phones, the AE120Bs, it needs to be on a phone line for it to collect a return for some reason. The Centurion does not. You can have it completely unhooked and it will activate the relay. The AE phones need to have the phone line hooked up. Here's another way I did it with this one, is I just wired it tip and ground, and I isolated the ground from the phone. It does not go back to the PBX, so the yellow wire is not, because on my PBX the yellow and black are used for control, so I really don't want to be putting 120 volts onto that. But there you have it. Just, if you do this, have an understanding of electronics, basic electricity at the very least. Be safe, shield your stuff. Don't play with 100 volts DC, and be very careful with 100 volts, 120 AC. You could also do it by using 2 45-volt batteries and getting about 90 volts. If you can still find the batteries, they're kind of hard to find. You can get them on Amazon. They're not cheap. They're like 20 or 30 bucks a piece. This is a way to do it. This is very easy. You could add a red light on here that would light up whenever the voltage is applied across the terminals. You could do it several different ways. I mean, but you want a reversing switch. The only reason you wouldn't need a reversing switch is if you always want it to do one function. If you just want it to collect or just return, you could just wire it straight into just a momentary switch. But I wanted to be able to do other and test the full functionality, so there it is. Stay safe out there. Don't blow yourself up.